Hello and welcome to Fresh Perspectives. My name is Gail, and I'm really lucky today because, am I looking at the wrong camera? Okay. I'm really lucky today because I get to interview a group of 4 really handsome young men. They go by the name of Chautauqua Brass. Thank you for coming on, guys.
Yeah, thank you for having us.
Okay, the first guy to my side here, his name is Daniel, and Daniel Marion, and tell us where you're from, because you guys are from all different parts of the continent here.
Yes, we are. I'm actually from Fort Worth, Texas.
Okay, and what instrument do you play?
I'm on the bass trombone.
Oh, okay. Okay, well, we'll introduce Landon then. Landon Gray. Where are you from, Landon?
I'm from Santa Rosa, California, just north of San Francisco.
Oh, wow. Yeah, and you play?
I play trumpet.
And sometimes
And
sometimes a toilet plunger?
sometimes a plunger, yeah, with the trumpet. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, and okay, you can pass that along to Devin there. This is Devin Bennett. Tell our viewing audience where you're from, Devin.
I'm from British Columbia, Canada, in the Rocky Mountains.
And you play?
I play tenor trombone. You can just see it just behind me right there.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Okay. And
my name is,
Bobby Fisco.
yes, my name is Bobby Fisco, and I'm from the Cleveland, Ohio area, and I play tenor trombone and sometimes alto trombone.
Okay. Now, you guys play together. Now, how did you get to becoming a group of musicians that work together?
So a few of us met actually during our undergraduates in college. Daniel, our bass trombonist, Devin, one of our tenor trombonists, and myself went to University of North Texas, and that's where I met Devin and Daniel both. There we met our mentor and music coach, Jan Kagreis, and through that, through her business, Musicians Wellness North America, is how we actually met Bobby, our final member. We all came here to continue studying with her, working with her company, and forming a music group here.
Mm-hmm. And you guys have a mission, right?
We do. We have both. We have a performance mission, and also we have a mission in education. So we have a very 50-50. Most performance groups have a very heavily focused mission on performance and touring. A large part of what's very important to us is both the education, the reintegration of music, and making sure it's just a really prevalent part of all school curriculum, and also just making and working with Musicians Wellness with musicians who have lost the ability to play.
Oh, okay. And this is something that Jan was doing at the time you all met her then?
Yeah, she was doing it before we all met. She's been doing this for a long time, and Devin can talk more about Musicians Wellness work.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
So when I first met Jan because I contacted her for this disorder which we're talking about, which is musician's dystonia. So in high school, in 10th grade or 11th grade, I stopped being able to play because of this neurological movement disorder. So I went to Jan. I actually, Skyped her. She was in Texas and I was overseas. And ever since then, that was about 10 years ago, ever since then, I've been working with her in her business to help retrain musicians. So first I retrained, and also Bobby, to my right, also retrained from this disorder.
Okay, so both of you have actually had it then?
Yes.
But you haven't?
No,
No?
I have not, no.
Okay.
Yeah, so really what we're talking about with, when I mentioned musicians' dystonia, is it's a learned movement disorder. So it can happen in musicians, It can happen in golfers. It can happen in any type of musician, so a pianist, a brass player, and it's essentially uncontrollable muscle spasm, which means you go to play the trombone and your face just is spasming uncontrollably where it's dysfunctional. You can't actually play the trombone anymore. With pianists, it happens where your actual hand curls away from the piano. Something similar to it is golfers' yips. We were just talking earlier about this, where a golfer goes to hit the ball and there's a hitch or some spasm where he can't actually go to hit the ball. So it's caused from a number of reasons. Some pedagogical, so how musical instruments are being taught. And part of our mission as Chautauqua Brass is part of an outreach or engagement part of Musicians Wellness. So we go out to schools in this area and around the US and Canada and bring some healthy tools, some healthy ways of learning the instrument so that students don't ever get this, because our goal is prevention. So we don't want them to ever have to suffer through what Bobby and I went through, because people who get musicians dystonia, when they're retraining, they say it's the worst thing, the hardest thing they've ever done.
The retraining.
The retraining, because it takes a long time. It takes a humongous amount of effort every day to retrain, where you're not getting to play the music that you love. You have to go in and retrain every little bit of how you play the instrument. Mm-hmm. And so it's in some ways it feels like hitting your head against the wall. Mm-hmm. And in some ways, mm-hmm. It can feel great once you get to a certain point, but really it's a tough process. Mm-hmm. It takes a lot mm-hmm. of effort, takes a lot of money, and it takes professional musicians out of their orchestras, out of wherever they're playing. So there's a loss of income. I was in school when I was retraining, so I had to play in ensembles with this movement disorder and try and just, suffer through. And so going to Jan and retraining, we all really believe in this mission of, first of all, to eradicate focal dystonia or musicians' dystonia from the world. We don't want anyone to ever have to go through this, mm-hmm. what we went through. Mm-hmm. And then also as a group, we want to do the prevention aspect. So we don't want to have to really retrain someone. We want to make sure that they never even have it in the first place.
There are ways that people can play their instruments without developing it then.
Yes, absolutely. And it really comes down to just a couple key points, a couple simple parts of pedagogy of how you're really teaching an instrument that can even avoid it. And we can talk about that a little bit. It might be interesting for me to even show you with Bobby, blowing air through the bell, and just mm-hmm. to show people, mm-hmm. show your listeners what we're even talking about. But
mm-hmm. Yeah, and this is a neurological disorder, you said?
It is. So it's called a functional movement disorder, which all that means really is you're doing a repetitive action. Something akin to it is actually with the elderly, when you have dentures for a long time.
Oh. And
you have dentures and they're uncomfortable or they're moving around and you're going like this. Oh. And you sort of are playing with your dentures all the time. And then all of a sudden after a few years of doing this all the time, you take out the dentures and you can't stop doing that. You're going
even when they're not in your
even
mouth.
When you're not actually wanting to do it. So it's uncontrollable. It's a learned skill, a learned movement that you add in. So with trombone, I might have learned to do something with my mouth that's very dysfunctional. My corners start to pull back, and I can't really effectively play trombone that way. Mm-hmm. But it's learned in, so I go to play trombone, and it happens every single time.
Mm-hmm. So you said that the medical profession claims there is no cure for the problem. Is that right?
That's absolutely right. And for our our clients in Musicians Wellness, that's a huge psychological barrier because they first go to a neurologist who tells them, you know, you've got focal dystonia, you're never going to retrain. You're never going to be able to play again. And so they give up hope. And they might go and try and find people who can help. And generally, the strange thing is Jan is often the end of the road for them, their last-ditch effort.
Now, was this something that she was able to go to college to learn, or did she develop this herself?
Everything that this is easy for me to say, everything that we know about musicians' dystonia, or even how we play, comes from Jan. She did not go to school for this. It's really her research, her knowledge, and her learning of neurological disorders, but really also just her experience working with people for over 35 years, retraining musicians. And so she has a lot of experience, and she has a lot of actual neurological book learning, but it's really the real world experience with, ever since the 90s or earlier, she's been working with people with this disorder.
Mm-hmm. How can people get a hold of her if they have the problem, or if they play a musical instrument and want to make sure that they don't get it?
Yeah, so we have a website, so musicianswellness.com. It's I actually made it. And there you can see sort of the process of retraining. There's who can retrain. You can just go for some information about what Musicians Wellness is all about. The mission statement is on there. So yeah, it's just a landing point for people who might be looking for a solution to this problem.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that's good. Now, have you been playing your instruments most of your lives?
Yeah, as for me, I've been playing since 4th grade, however long that is away. Yeah, a long time. How about you?
I've been playing since I was 10 years old, and I'm 25 now, so I've reached the barrier of over half my life now. I've been playing trombone, but I started on piano when I was 4, so music has been a big part of my life pretty much since I could remember things.
Mm-hmm. Even before that, you probably enjoyed listening to it at least,
of course,
right?
yeah.
Right? Do you have any other comments about this mission that you have?
I think it's really important, the work that Jan and Musicians Wellness is doing. As Devin mentioned before, musicians' dystonia is often categorized as focal dystonia by a neurologist, and they are then told that they will never be able to play their instrument again. And science, brain science, we just know now that that's not true. Through neuroplasticity, we can rewire the brain. And because this is a learned movement disorder, people can overcome it, and they are getting back in their orchestras and resuming work.
That's good. Now, about you two guys who haven't had the problem, now how did you all met through Jan? Is that right?
Well, in college, when you move in as a freshman from out of state, you definitely go right to the dorms, right to the dormitory. And so Devin was actually just a few doors down from me, and our RA introduced us because I was looking for musician friends who talked to me about recordings of different orchestras and things like that. So that's how I met Devin. And at the time in college, I had some playing issues that I couldn't get past to fully play other pieces or things like that. I was having some minor issues. And so I talked with Devin, and Devin said, well, why don't you come observe one of my lessons? And that's when I first saw what was going on with Devin, because he was near the beginning of his retraining process. So it's the first time I had seen focal dystonia, and I really didn't understand what was happening. And so it started a many-year looking into this and talking with Jan and just being around the studio. And so that's really how I came to knowing Devin. Now, Daniel was a student of Jan's at the time. I believe you were a junior or sophomore, but had been at school in her studio for a little bit as a bass trombone student. And so I first went to Jan with some of my more minor playing problems, things that weren't working really well, because also she has a reputation for helping with a lot of different things, not just vocal dystonia, being a really great teacher.
She sounds like a really special person.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, you want to say something about it, Daniel?
Sure, yeah. I've been studying with Jan since 2011. Excuse me. And yes, I've never had the disorder, but I have had several imbalances, and she is absolutely magical at what she does, for sure.
Yeah. It sounds like she pretty much developed this, doesn't it?
Yeah, she did.
Yeah, yeah. Now, you guys, you said that you play a lot of Christmas concerts.
Yes, we did. We had, I think, 6 total this past December and November.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow. Do you play at other times of the year then also?
We do, yeah, when we can.
So there's usually publicity out about when and where you're going to be then, right?
If it allows for it, yeah. Sometimes we get a gig in short order, so there's not enough time to do that sort of thing.
Oh, okay. So were you going to have him demonstrate
Yeah, I think we could do that.
one of
You wanna
those
do that?
things? Yeah.
So this might just be a little bit of interest to folks that don't really know what we're talking about, or even, students in band. This might be for you. Anyone that playing an instrument that just wants to get better, or you don't really need to have a disorder or anything to really have this be beneficial to you. This is really one of the simplest exercises we do, and really it goes to the basis of the retraining process and also the pedagogy that Jan teaches, and we also are trying to bring to schools. So what Bobby's just going to do is the horn is going to come up and he's going to just move some air freely through the bell. So simple. And, trombone and wind instruments are called wind instruments for a reason. So it's wind that makes that sound. So he's going to do that again, and he's just going to blow air through the bell. And you're thinking, okay, this is a pretty simple thing. What does this have to do with retraining? What does this have to do with even learning the instrument? So when we're playing, we want really functionality and efficiency. So we want to be able to play what we can play, what we want to play, the musical message to communicate to someone. And then also we want to, when we're done playing, not to be really getting hurt or too tense and getting tired. So the efficiency part is a lot of what we work with students and what Jan works with people. So this is really an efficiency exercise. So the horn comes up and air moves freely through the bell. So he's just doing nothing extra except just air through the bell. And then when we want a tone, let's say he's gonna play just a B flat, the trombone comes up and that B flat is already moving through the bell. So what he's doing, and this is really for musicians and people that play instruments, all he's doing is moving air through the bell and expecting that tone. And anything else that he does, really almost anything else to try and make that tone happen, is going to get in the way of that natural just airflow and the expectation of tone. So that's one of the easiest exercises that we can do. And in a band setting, you can have all of the kids in the band just blow air through the bell and then play a phrase, and blow air through the bell and play a phrase. So that's one of the simplest exercises from Musicians Wellness that we bring to students when we go into schools.
Okay, did you say that Jan's husband used to be in the symphony orchestra at the Chautauqua Institution?
Yeah, so that's how Jan actually ended up here. Her and Vern have been coming to Chautauqua Institution for, I think, over 30 years. Vern played in the orchestra for, I think, as well, over 30 years. And that's how Jan found the community here. She has a wonderful community of friends, swimmers, and musicians who really drew her to move all the way from Texas to Chautauqua to live here.
Oh, okay. What instrument did her husband play in the
Trombone.
orchestra?
So
Oh,
a lot of
really?
trombonists, and Jan also
okay.
played bass trombone like Daniel does.
Oh, Jan did too?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And she gave up playing trombone actually just to focus on teaching, focus on really solving this disorder and getting rid of this disorder. So that's, giving up the gift of music is I really appreciate that she gave up something that she loved for us, to help us. So
Yeah, I'm glad she did it too,
Mhm.
because, well, this sounds like something that that all people who teach young people to play instruments should learn, so that they can teach their students how to prevent getting it. Is this some sort of a goal that you're working towards?
Absolutely. The goal of Chautauqua Brass, one of the goals, is not only to communicate through music to foster a music community and foster music in the community through performance, but it's also to bring these healthy practices that we're talking about, these ways of playing that really gets us to just play music and not worry about getting dystonia or working through these problems. Our goal is to go to schools throughout the world and spread this message, spread the focus on music, but also these efficient practices, and really just update what people are doing so that they don't ever have to worry about getting musicians dystonia, and they can just enjoy playing music for the sake of music.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, I hope this gets to be a widespread thing that is taught to people studying to play musical instruments. Can it happen to singers?
Surprisingly, yes, it can. I don't have personally a lot of experience with singers. It can happen to singers as well, where they get actual uncontrollable spasm in their vocal cords, in their tone production.
Mm-hmm.
It could even happen to professional dart players, professional gun, I don't know what that's called, gun shooters. Anything that someone might do for thousands of hours with a lot of repetition, and who might not have the most updated, efficient practices of how to actually learn a motor skill. So it can happen in a lot of different ways, a lot of different professions.
Different things.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess we could probably move along now. I imagine the viewing audience is hoping that I'm going to have you play your instruments pretty soon, so would you like to get started?
Absolutely. Shall we? Just give us a moment to grab our horns and we'll set up. And thank you so much, Gail.
Oh, you're welcome.
So we are so excited to be here performing for you today. That first piece is called Din Din Din. We don't know who wrote it, and it's really special to the four of us because it's actually the first piece that we all played together. Our second piece is called On a Hymn Song of Philip Bliss, and it's based on the hymn It Is Well With My Soul. Philip Bliss wrote the music for it, and a man named Horatio Spafford wrote the lyrics. And Horatio knew a little bit about what it was like to go through extremely challenging and trying times of life. At a particularly bad financial state, he lost his son to scarlet fever. And knowing that a vacation would do him and his family some good, he sent his wife and his 4 daughters over to England, and he would join them later. Now, the ship that they were on sank to the bottom of the ocean, and while his wife made it, none of his daughters did. When Horatio joined them a few weeks later, he went across, and as he was on the ship and it went over where the other ship had sank, his heart was heavy, and some words came to mind. And he wrote those words down, and it became the lyrics to It Is Well With My Soul.
was a really sad story. He lost all of his children.
This next one we're going to play for you is written by a Brazilian trombonist and an educator. His name was Gilberto Gagliardi. And Gagliardi was made very famous in Brazil, particularly for his efforts in education. He would eventually get the nickname of the professor amongst most Brazilian brass players. And what's cool about this next piece is he wrote it as a sort of set for his students. He would play in his lesson, and this is Cantiga Brasileira.
I'm going to step out and take a short break now. Thanks, Devin. The next set of pieces we're going to do are 5 small vignettes composed by a Frenchman named Francis Poulenc. He based each of these poems off of poetry written by a woman named Madeleine Lay. And we use these for actually when we go into schools to show how music has a direct relation to a story being told or something to be communicated. A big part of music for us is that we're always trying to say something to the audience. And with these, we can really show with poetry, making a direct connection, showing that they tell a very specific story. Francis wrote this set of music after the tragic passing of a childhood friend, and he wanted to kind of remember the times that were more innocent when you are a child, when things that you viewed then as large tragedies that later in life you realize were probably not such a big deal, and things that also were celebrated that were very fun, things that were extremely fun to do as a kid, like getting a new pet. So before they play each of these pieces, I'll say the poem in English, not in French, and then they'll play the piece. The first one is about a little girl. It goes like this. The good little girl comes home from school with her basket. She puts on the table the plates and the heavy glasses, and then washes up at the pump in the yard without getting her apron wet. And if her little brother is sleeping in his little cradle, she will sit on the worn stone step and watch the night star. This is the part in the program where we'd ask everyone to say, who likes dogs? Raise your hand. And so this next one's about a little lost dog. And the poem goes like this. Who are you, unknown one? Who are you, lost dog? You dream, you sleep. Perhaps you'd like me to scratch you here behind your ear. Sweet dog lying on the pavement, who lifts towards my eyes your black and white gaze. Who are you, unknown one? Lost dog. The third poem We like to envision almost, someone bursting through the school doors, the kids and maybe the teachers at the end of the day, bursting through the school doors, being done with the day and running home. And sometimes you meander a little bit and you lose track of time, maybe wander down a path home you shouldn't wander down. And so this goes like this. It goes, coming home from school on a lost path, I met the moon behind the black woods. She was round and clear and shiny in the sky. Coming home from school on a lonely path, have you heard the owl who flies and the sweet nightingale? And that one at the very end always makes me chuckle just a little bit. The fourth one, is that tragedy that I spoke about that, ends up in the long run not being the biggest deal. It's, a little boy has a cold and he can't go outside to play with his friends. And the worst part is he hears his friends playing outside without him. And so it goes like this. The sick little boy does not want to look at pictures anymore. He closes his weary eyes and his warm hands flop on the sheet. His mother opens the window and the white curtain blows in and out on the street in a cool May evening. He hears the others outside shouting out on the pavement and playing hopscotch. And then he turns his head and cries silently into his little folded arms. A bit more energy. It's all about bringing a hedgehog home, which I've never gotten to experience. But it's a new pet for the family. It's called the hedgehog. When Papa finds a hedgehog, he brings it home. We put for him some warm milk in the bottom of a plate. He does not want to uncurl because he hears talking. But if we leave the kitchen, he shows his cheeky head.
That tune was called Pure Imagination from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So we played quite a few short pieces and quite a few slow pieces. And now I think it's time for a fast and hard piece. So this next piece is called Slavonic Dance Number 1. It comes from a set of dances from the Slavic tradition, composed by Antonin Dvorak. And it's really rhythmic, it's really fast, and it's really fun, so I hope you enjoy. Whew. So two more pieces. The second to last piece is called Georgia on My Mind. It's a jazz classic from the 1930s by Hoagy Carmichael. And there's some debate whether it's about the state of Georgia or his sister, actually, who is also named Georgia. So we'll let you decide. Enjoy.
So we have one tune left for you today, but before we play it, I'd like to extend a huge thank you to the station for having us here today. And our last piece is a tune by Bela Fleck and the Flecktones called Flight of the Cosmic Hippo. And if you listen very closely, you might know who our hippo is.
so much. And I'm sure that the viewing audience thanks you too. And we've come to the end of another episode of Fresh Perspectives, and I'll see those of you in the viewing audience on the next episode in a couple of weeks.